never been a better time to stock up.
There has never been a better time to stock up because, of course, we've got a half-price event here on Creating Craft, which is fabulous. And we have got your Quilting Classroom now. What I would advise is press your record button now. Hi, Jenny.
Nice to see you.
And you too. Of course, we've got Jennie Rayment and, of course, the teacher, the techniques guru, the queen of quilting.
My head will be enormous.
No, because it's all true. And we've got fabulous products for you, and the prices are amazing.
That is the big thing about this.
Yes.
We have got some really, really super prices.
I love it. And remember, anything that you see, if you want to jump ahead on the website now, before the classroom starts, then of course you can, all the w's.creatingcraft.tv. Should we start ahead? Because we want to obviously make sure...
through here.
We're gonna do a quick romp through everything that we've got on the show. And then we will get on with the classroom. Okay.
Sorted.
So let's have a look at this kit here.
We've got bits and bobs and all sorts of very useful things. From some long gold-eyed basting needles, which are great for going through soft furnishings, linking curtains to the interlining, doing your basting on your quilts, tacking, that is. So those needles. We've got some pins. Really nice sort of pins with multicoloured heads. So if you want to put your, sort of subdivide your work into, again, stitch this bit to that, but you put red pins in this one and yellow pins in the other, so that's useful.
Then we've got
basting brights. Now, they are rust-free, so when you want to hold your quilt layers together prior to quilting, you can hold them together with the basting brights.
Okay.
Then you've got things to stop your rulers from sliding, or indeed anything else. They go on the back of
But not the children.
But not the children. It doesn't keep the children still for very long. I tried.
Yeah.
You need several packets of them. So that is an anti-slip device. Just pop it on the back of the ruler and you can see through it.
Okay. Then
invisible. Now that's invisible thread. Now it is, you can just about see it, but that's a great choice whenever you're stitching in the ditch or wanting to applique something.
Stitch in the ditch.
Yes, you see.
Yeah.
or appliquing multicolours. You can go round it with the one thread because it means you don't have to change thread. So, useful thing to do.
Okay, and then of course...
Then you've got a marking pen.
Yeah.
Marking pens are always very good, and that's one that will literally come out with a dab of water, or as I have said before, is you can just spit on it and it will come out with that. And look, it's just plop. And that's your best pokey tool.
Oh, this is brilliant.
That's a pokey tool and a seam presser. You poke the ends out with that, so perhaps if you're dressmaking, it's your collar, or maybe it's the point of your dress and plate that I'm going to be doing for. And then the other end is a really good seam presser, rather than finger pressing, just flatten.
Yeah, these are brilliant, absolutely brilliant, it really is. And what a fantastic kit.
For that price?
£9.46. But it's better than half price if you are in the Creating Craft Club. It's just £8.51, Jenny.
You want to have actually several of those to make a Christmas present.
That's what I think. I think if you buy a couple of these, that would be absolutely brilliant, and great stocking fillers.
Keep the best bits yourself and then put the others in, you know, your friend's stocking.
They're all best bits. 323014 is the item number there. This is my set that I've got. It's not mine.
You've long last got it, have you?
Oh, I've had it for ages.
Brilliant.
I love it.
Right, because
I love it.
You've got the big, long ruler, and you need this for all your cutting. It's the ruler I use day in, day out, 24.5 inches long by 6.5 inches wide, marked out in the very all-important 1/8 of an inch increments.
Yes.
And it's got various angles on it to help you cut. You peel the paper off the back and then it becomes transparent. Along with that, we've got a 9.5 inch square. This is slightly angled at lefty-righty because it's got black numbers and red numbers. You align the black and the reds, again marked out in 1/8 of an inch, and any size of square from 1/4 inch to 9.5.
Wow.
And then the great big easy angle. Now, this is one of those really useful tools because it cuts triangles. It saves 3/8 of an inch of material on every single strip you cut, and it means that you get accuracy and you haven't got to fuss about doing anything to do with working out how big your half square triangles are going to be. You cut a strip, cut it out, and you can do zillions of designs with it. Wow.
I must say, this is a really great tool kit and a really useful one. I love it. I use it literally every day. 275990. What an amazing price at £33.73. Shall we talk fabric?
Right. This is what I'm going to be using today. This is the teddy fabric. Now, we have some chicken fabric in similar sort of way.
Yes, we did.
And I wanted to use the chickens again, but they said, no, we've got teddies. I thought, great, this is going to make a really nice little teddy cock quilt. So we've got the teddy, 6 fat quarters for an amazingly good price.
£7.19.
Yes, yes. That is pretty cheap.
And 100% cotton, really good value. And remember, you can go for several. You don't have to just go for one.
And it's a one postage.
Yes, exactly. We're not limiting the numbers at all. 322863, £7.19. Can I see that?
Yes,
you
you
did
can.
with it. Can
Yes,
I just
you
have a
can.
quick
Yes,
look? Because have a look at this, ladies and gents. How beautiful is that?
It's your daily quilt.
Isn't that beautiful?
And you can notice I fussy cut the bears. And
Yes.
the nice thing about those bears was they were 1-inch squares, which made it really good to work with, and it worked exactly with the templates I'm going to be using.
And you know, this is great, because if you don't know what the gender of the maybe
This is
expectant child
exactly
is,
it, you
this is
see.
a beautiful colour,
Yes.
and the luxury sort of
Yes.
colour as well.
Yes, and it could even be a table runner, or it doesn't have to be
Absolutely.
a nursery cot
No.
quilt. It could just go in the nursery or go on the wall, or you
Yeah.
can just play with the fabrics and do something completely different.
What an amazing price, £7.19. Be quick for that. Let's have a look at your batting, or your wadding. And again,
That's a nice...
this is a real
big-
quality
yes,
one as well.
I like working with that.
Yeah.
The more and more I quilt, the more I really do like working with this. Now, this is a great big one. This is 81 inches by 96.
Wow.
And the nice thing about that wadding is not only is it easy to quilt through by hand or machine, if you lightly press the fibres onto it, then it slightly bonds it to it. But you don't waste any, because you can join it together with a zigzag on the sewing machine, so you waste nothing. So you get odd bits left, join them all together with a big zigzag, or cobble them together with some stitches, and it's fine.
I love the price as well that we've got here at £17.99. 325252, that is the item number there for your all-important cotton batting. So this is real high quality. Let's have a look at these two, because I know this set.
Yes, this is the set we're going to be using today.
Yes, but you were amazed at the price
Yes.
as well.
Because these things are usually round about £10, £11 each. You've got 4 templates, and you've got the bamboo pointer and creaser, which is a useful, really useful tool.
Definitely.
So you've got the 60-degree diamond, which does your tumbling blocks, your baby blocks, and 3 of those make a hexagon.
Fantastic.
Then you've got the hexagon itself. Now, this is a basic sort of patchwork template. Many people start off with a hexagon. So you've got the hexagon, and it does multi-sizes, as indeed does the diamond.
Yeah.
Then you've got a 45-degree one. Now, this does shapes like the kaleidoscope. You can put them together. You can also use it in much the same way as I'm going to be using Dresden plate, one up that way and one up the other way, and just they fit together.
Oh, that's a brilliant
And then we've got the Dresden plate. And the ace thing about all these templates is they all are multi-sizes. You don't just have to get the one size. On the Dresden plate, you get a 1-inch plate, a 1.5, a 2, etc., etc., all the way up to 8 inches. And there is the bamboo pointer and creaser for poking out the pieces.
I love that we get this in here. This is so useful. What an amazing price. £22.48. This should be £49.96. It is better than half price if you are in the Creative Craft Club. I've got so many of these pieces that I have them, because I have this.
You're becoming converted, my
I
friend.
love it. The micro stitch is incredible. I could wax lyrical about this all day long. It really is an amazing tool. Must have. I love the fact that we've got this, and we've got them with the refills as well.
And you get the coloured refills too. You get black and white, which is great.
This is something that if you're tacking things together, of course, this is brilliant. You don't have to think about the machine. If you, certainly for quilting, I suppose it's absolutely perfect.
Yes, you just sort of fire it in and it holds the layers. No problem at all.
I use this to hold in the zips before I
That's a very good idea.
Yes.
I use it to hold up my hem when I've caught my heel in my hem.
Of course.
People use it for their curtains.
Yes,
Can't
they
be
do.
bothered with curtains. Zoom, zoom, zoom along there.
Yeah.
Nigel uses it to hold his bills together.
Well, that's a good idea.
Because he can never find his stapler, so he just tags it with a micro tag gun.
Well, there you go. It is so incredibly versatile. You're going to absolutely love it. And, of course, you do get your refills as well. An amazing price at £22.49. 285221 is the item number to quote there. Let's talk about your buyer's tape.
Right, that's a buyer's tape maker. It's a clover one. It's nice and easy to use. You don't need any sort of power other than an iron, and you literally cut your buyer's strip, stitch it, push teeth in straight, push it through there, iron it as it comes out the other end. Great for binding both dresses, garments, soft furnishings, and indeed for quilts. And again, a nice, inexpensive little tool that's easy to handle and no problems.
Oh, I might have to buy that one. I haven't got this. I might have to buy this one. Okay, £8.09. What a great price. 192,149. And I got this. Mine arrived.
Also from Clover.
Mine arrived the other day. I am so thrilled. It is your mini iron, your Clover iron, with its stands as well. You do get a little screwdriver with it also.
It's because you can change the head. You only get the one head with it, but you can change that head for about 4 or 5 others. So if you're doing all sorts of different types of ironing, you can get different heads with it. And that little head, though, is great for getting into seams if you're doing patchwork, little fine seams if you're doing dressmaking. If you're doing anything with miniature or doll's housey, it's great for that. And for taking to class, of course, it's a nice small thing. It doesn't weigh very much. You can pop it in your bag,
what I love.
off you go.
And what I love when I use it in my sewing room is that I don't have to have that big iron.
Nope.
So I just
and you only want a little pressing sometimes. You don't need to put the
exactly.
entire iron on. And that has two speeds. It has high and it has low, and obviously has an off button as well.
Yeah, brilliant. It really is a must-have. Again, 192527 is the item number for that one. I was so excited when it arrived. $35.99 is the price. Oh my goodness, we've got this on FlexiPay.
Brilliant. So it means you can put all
my
your
gosh.
fabrics and everything else into the same basket.
Oh, that's a brilliant idea. That means in your flexi basket, it's just £18 you'll pay today, plus, of course, your P&P. And don't forget, talking of postage and packaging, if you want to order 3 items or more, the postage is capped at just $6.99. So, of course, threads.
Yep.
And no ordinary threads, but quality threads.
Those are the nice Gutermann threads. You've got a range of colours there, and, of course, one always wants thread.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be buying some fabric, you might as well pop some thread in there as well.
Yeah.
A range of colours, they'll suit just about everything.
Yeah, lovely colours there, really are, and really high quality. £15.29, 319759 is the item number to quote. Then, of course, we've got our fat quarters. So we've got 3 different sets of fat quarters. Let's start with Amy.
Right, Amy is lovely, I think, really nice sort of summery colours. You've got your blue, you've got your pink, you've got your yellow, you've got spotty dotties, one with stars on, and hearts and things are in it. It's a really fun, summery, warm sun days, little girls, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It would make good table mats. It would make rather nice little sort of
beautiful.
skirts for little girls. It would make
Little
nice
summer
little pots for
dresses.
little summer dresses, all sorts of things for that.
And really gorgeous kind of cotton, because it's a soft...
It's a lovely, and it's almost polished cotton too.
Yes,
very nice cotton.
Absolutely beautiful, and an amazing price at $8.99. 322686 is the item number there. And then again, we've got fantastic sort of almost like tropical colours.
I liked those. I really liked. I felt they were very modern, very zingy.
Yes.
I like the lime green and the bright orange and the, I would call it turquoise. Some people call it teal.
Well, we are calling it turquoise and orange.
Good. I think it is, and it's got stripies in it. It's got patterns in it. I've used it for a super table runner using the Dresden plate one. But I think it's modern, up to date. It's with it. It sings of the sun.
It
and
really
again,
is
really
gorgeous.
bright and jolly.
Yeah, I love these. I think they're great for table.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Cushions in the sort of green, not greenhouse,
in the conservatory,
something like that. Or just to
Well, you want
up
some
your-
bright and some brighter colours in the home. This is beautiful.
Even the bathroom, it would look good in the
I
bathroom
think so,
too. You know,
yeah.
bring a bit of colour into that sort of stark white bathroom. Put something on the wall, a nice little hanging.
Love it.
Tissue boxes, you can make all sorts of things.
All
out of
sorts
it.
of things. It's absolutely beautiful. So that is your turquoise and your orange. And then, of course, I love this as well. This is your paisley. Very much on trend right now with your darker prints. But aren't these...
I made a really nice bag out of it. We'll see it shortly.
Oh.
Done the pilgrim script out of that bag.
Oh,
and it is a sort of bag-type fabric.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
I've done it with the grey on the outside and the red on the inside. And I think that lends itself to some form of possibly a bag. Because, you see, it won't show the dirt.
I love it. I think this is beautiful. And again, so many uses. These are your paisley mix fat quarters. 323050 is the item number there. $8.99. What an amazing price. Remember, this is your half price event. Shall we talk jelly rolls?
Yes.
Yeah, we've got 2 sets of jelly rolls here.
Right.
So we've got the Kingston.
You've got the Kingston one, which is one you've got in your hand there. And I've done a very quick, now this is something from Missouri Quilt Company, where they do the jelly roll race.
Oh, that's
And you have to race. And everybody sits down in a room, and we're going to try and do it on air. Maybe when we do the craft event, we're going to see if we can get details of how we can, as a giant audience, do the jelly roll race on Creating Craft. So everybody in their sitting room will be sewing away. I've thought of a way. Anyway, this is the Kingston one. There are 2 other strips, or 4 other strips that go with it, that'll border it.
Yes.
So you get this amount of fabric plus a border out of that.
Plus a border out of that.
And the other one you've got is the Long Road Batiks. And again, you've got the same amount
So
of
let's
fabric.
give the Kingston details. 323051. That is for your Kingston. It's absolutely brilliant. Very summery, very bright, a must-have. And then you've got your Long Road. Is that the Long...
It's a Long Road Batiks. And when we come to the classroom, I've done something with that as well. So you get 22.5-inch wide strips. And when you look at jelly rolls, there are dozens of different quilts that are made up of jelly rolls and perhaps another fabric, or jelly rolls just by themselves. It's one of those things you just got to have. You've just got to have it. Already, 20% of your long road has sold out and gone. 323030 is the item number there. And sticking with jelly roll, let's have a look at a jelly roll ruler. Particularly pertinent because it's got all the measurements on it that reflect the designs that people do with jelly rolls. So it's marked out specifically for jelly rolls. It's also marked out for honey buns, which are 1.5-inch strips, and it's marked out for layer cakes. So you've got that. And then with that, another useful template. That's great for bunting, and it's also good for doing a large Dresden plate with only 12 sections, and it can be made to make flowers a bit like the quilt that's hanging behind us. The one that's on here.
Oh, I see. Yes, yeah.
The background of that. So wait and see in the classroom. You will get a quick preview of how you could use that template.
Beautiful. Okay, absolutely beautiful. So that is 323010. That is the item number to quote. £25.19. Of course, we've got the book.
Yes, got the book. And the book's got
text
the scripting. So that's got the bag for today's class. So there is,
has it?
There's no PDF for the bag. There's a PDF for the cock quilt, but there's no PDF for the bag because it's all in the book.
And there's so much more.
As is, keep going, as is what you can do with the 630-degree template, making the flower.
Fantastic, Jenny.
Cracking.
This is a must-have as well. £13.49. 275982. That is the item number to quote there. What an amazing price. Let's have a look at our templates here, the yo-yo template.
We've got a yo-yo template and we've got some template plastic.
Okay.
Now this is really useful if you just want to cut out circles. They don't have to be for yo-yos.
No.
Yo-yo is the American term for what we call a Suffolk puff.
Yes.
In this little kit you've got not only the yo-yos, but you've got some gridded for making your own templates with, and
brilliant.
that's 1 inch wide.
Yeah.
And you've got a piece of no-melt mylar plastic.
So you've got 2 pieces of mylar plastic. Can be ironed.
Yes, and that's the good thing about this, is you can iron your fabric over it. It won't melt. You can stitch through it, but I find it really useful for gathering over because I can see through it if I'm going to do fussy cutting. So I can position exactly, gather over it, use it as a template, iron it on there, get a really neat crease.
That's a really good idea. What an amazing collection that we've got here. That's, again, really, really useful. And £17.09. 323015. Then, of course, we've got our yo-yo maker. Really useful as well.
This is good because not everybody wants to actually have to worry about doing a seam allowance. With that, it's all done for you. You can take that on holidays, pack it in your bag. You just need a pair of scissors, a bit of fabric. You hack out the fabric. You haven't got to measure it. You put it together and you can get a yo-yo.
And I like that we've got the instructions on the back as well.
And what I like about that yo-yo is it does give you very even creases, far more even than you get if you tend to do it the other way. So that does give you a very neatly pleated, because as you sew round, the stitching goes into each of the little holes. You get exactly regular stitching, rather than the slightly sloppy ones I tend to do because I just go round it. So that is perfection in stitch.
There you go. A bit like Jenny, perfection in motion. 193049, that is the item number there. Now, of course, we've got your cutting bundle. We've got your, I love my mat. I've got I bought 2 sets of this. 259153, combined price, remember, this should be £37.97. It's just £22.49. Remember, you're getting your extra blade as well. Then, of course, we've got your wavy squares from 10 inches down to 4 inches. Really, really useful, I would say. Really, really useful. Grab this if you can. £26.09. 238447. Then, of course, we've also got your puff quilting clips. We've got 2 sizes available for you. I think here we've got the small. There's 12 clips in total. £7.19. Making everything fast and simple. You can use the clips to create various motifs. Really useful, this. 206259. Then, of course, we've got your large size also. And don't forget, with the large size, you're also getting 12 clips. Just £7.99. Or, if you are in the Create and Craft Club, I believe it's £7.19. 206258, that is the item number to quote. Remember, this is all part of your half-price event. That sort of sounds Hawaiian mixed in with a cartoon at the end there. Yes. Now, Jenny, I'm going to let you go. Let Jenny loose. And remember, if you want to see any of the previous, you can after this classroom on our website. So, Jenny, Take it away.
Thank you kindly. Right, you may go and sit down.
Thank you.
Okay, right, we are here for a brief quilting classroom taking you through a range of techniques. Some time ago, it was Easter time, I had this rather nice chicken fabric and I designed this small cot quilt. And quite a lot of people said, oh, we want to do it. Well, I decided I'd do the cot quilt on this particular classroom. And the chicken fabric, sadly, had gone. But there was a better option, and that was the teddy fabric. And I like the teddy fabric because it's not specific. It could be for a girl, it could be for a boy, you could use it absolutely anywhere. And one of the things I particularly liked about the teddy fabric, it allowed me to fussy cut. So I used the teddy fabric to make up the little cot quilt. Sadly, this has been a really hectic week and I have yet to actually finish it. I gave this one quite a wide binding because I wanted to have the teddies sort of in their entirety going around the edge. What I'd like to talk you through is how you do the hexagons and how you sew them together, and a rerun of how we do the fan on the corners. So if you're going to start with the hexagons, you will obviously need the hexagon template. And I think the nice thing about the hexagon template is it's multi-sizes and you can cut a range of hexagons out using it. But one of the best things about it is you can actually see through it. So when we come to do the hexagons, you can position it exactly on the fabric to get your teddies in the right place. Now, I cut myself a 3.5-inch wide strip of fabric, and that is why this ruler is so very good. Because on this ruler, you've actually got your 1/4 inch line marked down both sides. So I was able to take the teddy fabric and lay the ruler on the top and position it so that I actually got the 1/4 inch line running exactly outside the teddies. And to my delight, the strip measured 3.5 inches. So I cut either side of the teddies 1/4 inch. This gave me a rather nice strip. Let's get rid of my little piece of paper to remind me it was a 3.5-inch strip. This hour of the morning, it is really a bit tough. I have to leave the house at just about 3 o'clock in the morning. So you position your template on there, and when I did this, I popped it on there so I could get the teddies exactly where I wanted them. Look through the perspex and arrange the lines so you get a little bit of brown there, a little bit of brown there, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, and cut out. And just to remind you of how easy it is to cut using this template, you cut up one side along the top there. Those two little bits you can keep. I'm sure you can find a use for those in your card making. Flip the fabric round, replace the template, bring it in from the side, and cut again. Now, to make the motif on the center of the little cot quilt, you will need 7 hexagons. And I actually cut out 6 like this with the 4 little bears on, but when it came to the middle one, I cut it out with the teddy bear in the very center. And somewhere I must have one, I sincerely hope. Where's the one I was going? Oh, I was going to demonstrate it. There it is, there he is. I cut it out with the teddy bear in the very center. These now get arranged. Now I'm going to keep the teddy bear in the center like that, and I'm going to put one of these so the teddy bears are all sitting facing inwards. It might pay you to sort of have a little look and see that they're all doing the same thing. And if not, does it really matter? There we go. Now there is the motif that's usually known as the grandmother's flower garden. I'm going to turn it slightly this way, because if I turn it round a little bit, you can see we've got 3 rows. And this is how you sew hexagons together. Now, I'm deliberately not going to use that fabric for my demonstration because it's not so easy to see where you're sewing when all the fabrics are the same. I'm going to use a range of different colors. So let me pop these to one side. And I know you've seen these before. So I'm actually going to sew together hexagons that look like this. It's exactly the same as the teddies. They are just different colors. What it will pay you to do is on the back of every single hexagon is mark the hexagons 1/4 inch in from every single seam, because the rule when sewing hexagons, and indeed when sewing tumbling blocks using the 60-degree diamond, is you do not sew any further than the edge of the seam allowance. You do not go into the seam, you stop on the seam allowance. So how you begin to join things together: take 2 of the hexagons, put them right sides together. You then sew from dot to dot. Remember, I'm not going beyond the seam either end, just sewing from dot to dot. So there is a little gap either end of the hexagons. You do that with the top row and with the bottom row. The row in the middle, you sew 3 together in exactly the same way, starting on the little dot and sewing towards the little dot. So there are gaps each end of all the seams. That's to allow the pieces to pivot round. Having got our 3 rows together, we then start to join the pieces. And when I'm going to join the pieces, what you're going to be doing is inserting that section into there. It's often known as a Y seam or an insertion seam. You can see the letter Y there. If you take the piece here, put it right sides together, make certain you get the right section. It's very easy to get the wrong piece. I put it in on the left and then flip it over, because I can then see where to sew. I'm going to start at the beginning where my seam finished, and I'm going to sew to the little dot. It'll look something like this. Let's get it round the right way. I started sewing there, and I sewed to the little dot. All you do then is literally bend the hexagon round, realign it, and you keep working your way along. And now you're going to sew from that little dot to that little dot. Work your way round. Keep on turning the hexagon. You have to break your threads each time, and you sew from dot to dot, right the way along, dot to dot. Eventually, you'll end up with the row all joined together, and it'll look something of that nature. All you're going to do then is insert that piece in exactly the same way into the other end, and you'll get the classic grandmother's flower garden rosette, and it'll come up like this. It's at this stage where I would press it, and the Clover mini iron is remarkably good for getting into those little seams. And what you want to do at the junction of where the 3 of them go together is literally just sort of fan them round. I like to press my seams as open and flat as possible, simply to reduce the bulk. Now, your problem is going to be is applying it to the fabric. The snag is turning the edge under. It's much easier if you take a piece of interfacing and you put the block right side down onto some interfacing. Then, using exactly the same seam allowance, you sew right the way round the outside edge. When you sew right the way round the outside edge, you want to clip all the excess interfacing off. I also very frequently clip just into the seam here, just to make certain there's no stitching being caught there. There shouldn't be, but just in case. When you've clipped all the interfacing off round the way around, make a small hole in it and you turn it through the small hole. And this is where that bamboo pointer is remarkably good for poking up the crack and opening it, flattening it out. And it'll look something like this when you've done it, so pokey up there. You've now got your grandmother's flower garden rosette made up of teddy bears. So it is to the front of the little cot quilt. Now let's take this piece here. I chose to have the gingham one, but you could have anything you liked. At this stage, I would suggest you check and make certain the sides are absolutely square. With the best will in the world, not all fat quarters have exactly square sides. And the nice thing about the gingham is you can actually cut it off following the lines on the gingham. So another reason for having that big ruler, for lining up and literally trimming off the edges. Having trimmed off the edges, I then applied the motif to the very center. And an easy way of getting it in the center of the thing without spending ages measuring it is to iron your backing fabric in half one way and in half the other way. Open it out and place the bears on top, getting the center crease running down through the middle of these little bears and that crease running along the crack there. Pin it in place. When you've pinned it in place, and I would suggest you put all your pins in with your pin heads going out that way, you're then pushing the fibers out. That's where you want to apply it, and this could be done on the sewing machine, and there's a very nice little stitch on this little faff that you could use, or you could do it, perish the thought, by hand, but you want to apply round the outside edge. Now, when you've got the center motif on, that's when we can start looking at how we're going to do the fan shapes that go round the edge. Now, these are formed using the Dresden plate template, and you can see how useful that bundle was with its 60-degree template and its hexagon one and the 45 one and indeed this one. Using the Dresden plate template, I cut a 5-inch wide strip. And from the 5-inch wide strip, I then cut sections. Now, I use this fabric, but of course, you could use any of the teddy fabrics you liked. To cut the Dresden plate, I put the base of the plate on one end of the strip, cut up one side, and then I flip the fabric over and cut again. Just let me remove my here's ones I did earlier samples from the end. Flip the fabric over. There we go. Replace the template. Remember, we're using the 5-inch line, and cut up again. Once you've got that little wedge shape, making the Dresden plate is seriously simple. Because all you do is you fold the little wedge shape in half. You then stitch across the short end like this, using hopefully a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And again, the little faff is very good because it comes with a 1/4 inch foot, so you can be exactly accurate. When you've sewn across the end with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, if you lightly finger press it, or just give it a quick press with the bamboo pointer and steamer, just give yourself a light crease down there. Don't iron it too much at this stage. Flatten it, and you need to get that seam open and flat. It pays, though, to make certain that it is nice and flat, is to just take, instead of throwing everything on the floor, just take the point off the seam. So take the point off the seam, flatten it. There we go. And what I like to do is just to open the seam at the back there. And again, the bamboo pointer and steamer is really useful just for flattening it down. At that stage now, we take this little point and we turn him right side out. And gently, with the other end of the bamboo pointer, just poke the end out. And it's at that stage now where I would give it a light press. And clover iron, mine isn't on at the moment, so you won't iron on your cutting mat, will you? Clover iron is very good for just ironing that little piece down. How I made the fans was I took 5 of these sections and they got sewn together. And the easiest way of sewing them together was to sew them together in sets of 2. Now, a little trick. When you come to sew them together, what I like to do is to start in a bit, reverse to the edge and then continue to the bottom. And the reason for that is it ties off the stitching here. If you start on the outside edge and leave your ends here, you're going to likely have it unravelling. But if you start in a bit, reverse and come forwards to the bottom, you will not have the unravelling problem. Now, if you are going to use the bears, I use my bears with one way, one the other. It is your choice. And the easiest way to do it was stitch them together in sets of 2, put one more section on the end of one of the sets of 2, and then join the whole lot together. If you are trying to make a pattern with your teddy bears, it pays to be consistent when you do your sewing. Having got them all joined together, that's where I then took the bamboo, not the bamboo pointer and crease, I'm getting muddled now, the clover iron, and gave the seam at the back there a nice press, getting it good and flat. And you'll need to make 4 of these. So I had one of these on each of the 4 corners. I put one there, and I put one here, and I put one here, and I put one there, and pinned them on. The trouble is, though, you've got little gaps. The easiest way to fill those little gaps in was to take, and I used the yo-yo sheet. I cut myself a circle of paper. A 3.5 inch circle actually was just the right size. This I folded in half, and in half again, and I cut it into 4/4 because that was the right size that I needed to go on the corners for to finish off the fan. But it needed a seam allowance. Having cut it into the 4/4, what I did with the 4/4 was stuck them onto a bit of card. Cut my card using a 1/4 inch seam allowance on the 2 straight sides of the template. I did nothing on the arced edge, no seam allowance as yet. Because how I put the seam allowance on the fabric was I laid the bit of card onto the fabric, and you could place it very carefully. Now, I tried to get the teddy bears in the right place. I didn't succeed terribly well, but you could spend some time doing it. Cut the fabric flush with the template and left an excess on the arc. Leave more than a 1/4 inch. It pays. This fabric can then be pressed over that edge of the card, either using the clover iron, or you can just finger press it over. And I used the sewing machine and I basted round it to anchor it to the card. Now, don't worry about it being stitched to the card. That comes out very easily. Because having anchored it to the card there, I then applied 1 to each of the 4 corners. Once they've been stitched down in place, and I applied round the edge here, and if you use a very small hand stitch and you just go through the edge of the fabric, not the card, when you undo the basting, you'll be able to pull the card out from the back. So one of these was applied to each of the 4 corners. Having done that, what I then did, and now we'll go back to the finished one, is simply add a border. And the border I chose to add round the template was actually using more of the teddy bears. There was just enough fabric. Now, if we bring the cameras in quite well, you can see what I've done to this section here is, because I wasn't terribly happy with my stitching round there, is I've gone over it with a decorative stitch. And these little decorative stitches that are available on, say, the FAF or on many sewing machines could have been done in a fancy colour or a fancy thread, one of the decorative threads that there are. And that just covered up my slightly wobbly stitching. I then, having added a border of the teddies, I mounted my piece of work onto the Hobbs batting and put a back on it. Now, in order to use all of the fabrics, I used one of the other teddy bears as the back. And it wasn't quite big enough, so I literally added just a frame round the edge of it. So from those 6 fat quarters, you can get the entire quilt and still have a bit left over. Once I'd added a border, having mounted it onto its wadding, the layers were held together. And you have 2 ways of holding the layers together. You can either pick up your micro-type gun, which you threw on the floor, and literally just fire it through. And you want to use the contrasting colour tags, because then you can see them to cut them out afterwards. Or, of course, there's no reason why you can't use the basting brights, and I had some basting brights here a little while ago. And the basting brights can be used just to pin through all the layer. These are rust-free and will last a long time, but don't leave them in the quilt forever. So you anchor the layers together either using the micro-tag gun, or you could use basting brights. I did nothing more complex than literally sewed using the regular foot, using the walking foot around the outside of the hexagons, and I went round twice. You could have done this stitching using the walking foot, or you could have done something a little bit more fancy and used the free motion foot. The one thing you don't want to do when you're sewing 3 layers together is to use your regular foot, because if you do that, you'll get creep. One of the layers will creep. So when you're anchoring a layer, a quilt sandwich together, that's a top, a middle and a backing, you must use either a walking foot or a free motion foot. Once I'd done a bit of quilting on there, I then bound it. Now, I put a fairly wide binding on it, and I'm just going to slip stitch by hand the binding over on the back. I have yet to finish this off. It's one of those jobs that this week just didn't happen. And if you are going to do any binding, it does pay, and it looks so much better if you can possibly mitre it both on the front and on the back. You will find details about mitring is in the Foldy Roldy Patchwork Pizzazz book, which is available on the Create and Craft website. Right, that's a little bit about the cot quilt, but I want to show you how and what I did with these fabrics. These are the rather wonderful paisley fabrics. And can my magic hands, who's waiting patiently, give me the paisley fabric? Thank you. You had 4 fat quarters here, and I thought they'd make a really cracking little bag. And the bag I chose to come up with was, where's it gone to? Someone's taken my bag. Oh dear, where's my bag gone? There it is. That was it. It'd be awful if the bag got nicked. Right, I've used the grey one for the outside, and I've lined it with the red one. And indeed, there was still some fabric left over from making the bag. What I did in the beginning, and the button choice is yet to be stitched on, again, another one of those jobs that just didn't happen this week. Don't ask about this week, it's been a real hectic week. When I came to cut the fabrics out, what I did was I used 2 of them to cut the outside large section. Now you'll be saying to yourself, it's all very well this, she's rabbiting on about the bag, but where's the pattern? The pattern for the bag is in here. If you go towards the back of the book, and this book has all sorts of things in microwave dyeing, you name it, here is your bag pattern. Now, basically, it's a very simple technique. You can trace this off onto drawn paper, you can construct your own very simply, or you can blow it up on the photocopier, or you can make something very similar, because all the bag principle is an oval with a large circularish bit of fabric attached to the oval. You need a bit of elastic because the bag has a gathered section round here. And just one word of caution. For any of you who are dressmakers and think you understand how the bag goes together, may I refer you to the next page, which says quite clearly, attention, for all of you who think you know how this bag is constructed, read the instructions because you could go wrong here. And the reason for that is the piece of elastic that's used in it doesn't go, as dressmakers tend to think it does sometimes, round along here. The elastic goes round the arc, because that is how we get a nice big flat bottom to this bag. This bag is a very roomy, very spacious, capacious bag, great for taking on holidays. Right, all the instructions on how you make it is in that book. What I did to begin with was I took 2 of the fat quarters, put them right sides together, and I cut out the large arc part of the bag. And where's my large arc part of the bag? There it is. Having cut out the large arced part of the bag, which is here, that used up most of 2 of the fat quarters, but there was still enough left to make part of the handle. From the other 2 fat quarters, I cut out the flap, the lining, and the pocket. So I cut out my lining, I cut out my pocket, and I cut out the flap. You will need, in addition to this, some of the Hobbs batting. Now, again, there was enough fabric left over to make the handle and indeed to make the little flowers, the little yo-yos that went on the front. So how do you construct the bag? Move number 1 is take these 2 pieces for the main part of the bag and put them right sides together. You then sew all the way round the arced edge and the arced edge only. I'm now going to move and show you what it looks like in calico. Here we have it in calico, sewing all the way around the edge there. When you've sewn all the way around the edge, you simply turn it right side out. I would clip around the arc, and it gets a jolly good press all the way around the arced edge. Now, I've got a piece of fabric here where I've got green, which I intend to have the outside, and calico for the inside. When you've sewn round the outside edge and turned it right side out, we need to sew along the open edge using a long stitch just to hold these layers together, because if you don't, they'll shift. And then you've got to sew 2 lines to hold the elastic. When you come to sew the lines, please make certain that the lines are wide enough apart to actually get the elastic through. I put it on a pin, and you could use one of the basting brights and just thread it through. You need only have 11 inches of elastic. Another little word of caution is, as you thread it through, it pays to pin the other end of the elastic, else you pull it out and you then feel a real idiot. Once you've threaded the elastic through, we need to do a slight modification to the elastic. You're going to gather it up. And what I like to do is gather it up, but leave a flat section ungathered of about 2 inches one end and 2 inches the other end. You then need about 7 inches of scrunch, which is why you only want 11 inches of elastic. And the reason for the flat pieces on either side is that's where the handles are going to go. And you don't really want it gathered where the handles are. So you will gather it up. It's at this stage where it makes a little bonnet, and you know, if I'm teaching it in a class, you find half the class sort of wear it on their head, and makes it, if I put it on my head there, you can see how really sweet I look wearing it as a little bonnet. So I know I'm balmy. Don't worry, the grandchildren call me balmy. So that is making the actual part of the bag. Turning our attention to the pocket. The pocket section that you've cut out gets folded in half. And what I like to do with the pocket section along the top of the pocket is I will reinforce it with perhaps a decorative stitch. And I think one of my favourite ones that's useful on so many machines is the honeycomb one. So I stitch along the top of the pocket. You then take the lining of the bag. Now we've cut 2 pieces of lining, 1 piece of lining in the red and 1 piece of outer fabric in the grey. The pocket is then laid onto the lining fabric. And what I do so I can get it dead centre is I press the pocket in half and make a crease, and also press the lining fabric in half and make a crease. Align the creases, crease to crease. Pin it on, and then I would just tack on the sewing machine using a long stitch all the way around the edge to hold the layers together. So you'll end up with a section that looks something like this. If you want to subdivide your pocket, then I would stitch up the centre crease and back, so my thread ends and starts are in the seam down there. It also pays to put a spare bit of fabric on the back, so when you rip the pocket or stuff too much in it, it doesn't tear the lining. So put the pocket on. Now let's turn our attention to the front of the bag. I had a grey front to my bag. You're going to take the front of your bag and lay it onto some wadding, whether you use the hob batting, or I had to use a bit of the polyester because I'd run out of the hobs. Once you put it onto its wadding, pin it on, and then you have a choice as to what you're going to do. When I constructed this little bag, I literally just wiggled over it at random using the free motion foot. It came up looking something like this. You can't see it so well on the grey because obviously the stitching is absorbed. If you didn't want to do free motion, and let's face it, not everybody can do that, there's no reason why you can't literally do cross-hatching, which is straight lines of stitch across the backing fabric. Cross-hatching is done very simply, and this little faff has a great gadget that helps you. It has something called a quilting guide. And the quilting guide fits into, slots into, attaches to some part of your sewing machine. And on this little machine, it slots in the back there. And what you do with the quilting guide is you set the quilting guide for whatever distance you want from the needle, the cross-hatching to be. You basically sew one line of stitch. So just let me sew one line of stitch across it. In order to keep your stitching straight, it would pay you to draw a line first. And again, back to my favourite tool, the ruler. If I put the ruler on the piece of work, I can then angle it so that I get the right way, around here, and then draw a line. You would draw a line, please, using some washable pencil. I'm just going to use an ink pen so you can see where I'm sewing. So I've got the angled line down the edge of the work, and draw. Once you've drawn the one line, if you sew along that line, and I'm just going to up the stitch length simply to get there faster. If ever I was working with wadding, I would tend to up the stitch length in any case a little bit, simply because you're sewing through a thicker substance, and that can contract the stitch. Once you get to the end, thread saver really is a bit of a pain, so I wouldn't bother about using it. What happens then is you're going to put the quilting guide beside that line of stitch. So the guide is now going to run beside that line of stitch, all the way down there. And you simply work like this, right from one side to t'other and the other side, and then you turn it round and go in the opposite direction. And that is how, it always gathers up on a long stitch, you will achieve the cross-hatching. So having cross-hatched, we've got a couple more things to do before we can put the bag together. So let me just take that out of there. The bag goes together like this. You take the back, you take get me words around the right way. You take the front of the bag. To one end of the front of the bag, you've got to add a tab, and I tend to use a 4.5 by 1 1/4 inch bit, and simply fold it sides to middle. You then take the body of the bag, the little hat, and this gets placed on the other end. Line up all the raw edges and simply sew the body of the bag to the bottom half of the flap. So we've got this section. You then take the lining and you put the lining on top, sandwiching the entire lot all in one fell swoop. Make sure you pin this well into the middle so you can't possibly get it tucked in the seam. Pop it on there, line up top and bottom, pin it really well, and again I like to have my pins going out, there and there. And when you've pinned it top and bottom, make the lining fit the outer side of the flap, because they came from the same pattern, they should fit. Now I'm going to do this very rapidly, so I'm going to use the long stitch again. When you come to sew round the outside edge of the bag, you want to start a little bit about here and finish about there. We have to leave enough room to turn the bag through. Now, I'm probably not going to get all the layers quite together, so you'll have to forgive me for that, but let's whip our way around this. So I'm leaving a gap right the way around the entire thing. Do make sure that when you sew round, you leave the gap in the bottom of the bag. I would do a reasonable size seam allowance when I came round here, perhaps needle in the middle of the presser foot. So you come in on all previous seam allowances. Over the little tabby section, and do make certain you get the tab section facing downwards into the bag. Otherwise, if you don't, you get a real strange surprise when you turn the bag through, because the tab isn't quite where you thought it was going to be. Check carefully you don't get the actual belly part of the bag, the base of the bag, caught in the seam. Keep on going round. Right, there we go. And remember to leave a hole at the bottom. I'm going to leave a reasonable hole because I want to turn it through quite quickly. The smaller the hole you have, the harder it is to turn through, but the less you have to stitch up afterwards. Cut that off there. Right, stick your hand up the inside and turn the entire thing through. There we go. Now, it's at this stage where if I'm teaching a class, I say to people, oh dear, look, you've got it all wrong. But you haven't, because all you've got to do is that. Return it again. That little hole that you left in the bottom there can be sewn up by hand, ere and on. Sometimes I don't bother. There is your little bag turned through. What I would do now is I would press round the edge of the top of the bag, top stitch round it, and fix my button on. And all I did after that was, having fixed it on, was I decided that some Suffolk puffs in the lining fabric would look really rather good. Yo-yos, they're often called. And these are nothing more complex than either you can use the clover tool, which will give you a very accurate and totally evenly pleated little yo-yo, and they do look good, I have to confess. Or you could use the yo-yo maker, and I cut out the largest circle, sewed all the way around it, and literally just gathered round the top edge all the way around there. And when you've done that, turn it right side out, draw up the threads, cast off, and you will have a little Suffolk puff or yo-yo, call it what you will. And I think we're going to have to finish the classroom in a few minutes or so because we're going to be running out of time. But I want to show you one last very quick thing that you can do with the Dresden plate. So that's your little thing turned right the way through. Draw it up tight and they can be applied. Your handle is nothing more complex, and there are full instructions in the book, than a 4.5-inch strip. And what I do with that is I press one end over by about 1/4 of an inch, press the other side up by about 1.25 inches, refold it so that that folded and pressed edge is in the center. To make the handle a little bit nicer to hold, I very often put some form of wadding or fluff batting, call it what you will, inside. Wrap it up and stitch it. When I'm stitching it, I will do a line of stitch up the middle and then probably a couple of lines either side. You can't see it very clearly on this because it's black on black, but that does make a really rather nice handle. To apply the handle, all I do then is I put it on the outside, simply fold the edge under and stitch it to the outside of the bag, because then it looks meant. And there you have your little pilgrim script bag, and you can make that any size you like. Once you understand the technique, this can be made very big or very small. Kids love it. And just to show you one last little thing about the Dresden plate, how about using the Dresden plate not as a plate, but as a shape? Because if you cut the Dresden plate out just as shapes, and you can do this with the 30-degree triangle as well, it works exactly the same. So whether you use the 30-degree triangle or the Dresden plate one, it is the same. Cut round the shape. Stitching them together, you can make a rather nice panel. And here we have a panel of them sewn together, which I thought could be made into a nice, quick table mat. So sew a panel together, level it off, simply put a bit of wadding on the back, another piece of fabric, sew all the way around and turn it through, and then you'll end up with a nice, quick and easy table mat. And you could make the entire thing considerably bigger by putting a whole load of them together and making perhaps a table runner. And then last thing to show you, because we really are running out of time, and I know Jackie wants to come back, is the other jelly roll. Look what I did with the Long Road batiks. I sewed strips of them together. I divided them into 5 sets of 4 colors, and I sewed them together, and that's the size of quilt I got out of it. I very carefully labeled them, having laid them out, so I would get them back together the right way. And you know, there was enough fabric left over from that jelly roll bundle to give me enough material to stitch together to make a stripy binding. So there you are. You can do an awful lot with a jelly roll. And if you have the jelly roll ruler, you'll be able to cut out very many more shapes and patterns with it. Jackie, you may come back. Yes. Okay. She's over there, sitting there, fiddling around. Come on, come back. Have we had any emails?
Oh, we've had loads of emails.
Good Lord.
What a wonderful classroom.
Yes. You were sitting there in awe, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
But look, this is the Long Road batik.
Yeah.
And what I did with it, I sewed them together into 5 sets of 4. I sort of roughly divided them out. From these, I just cut myself whatever the width of that strip was, that size squares. Laid them out in colour order, and look what happened.
Wow.
Isn't that
amazing.
superb?
That's beautiful.
Now, you see, not everybody has a jelly roll, has a rotary cutting mat and things. If you just had a jelly roll ruler, where's he gone to? I had it somewhere. Can you find a jelly ruler? Where have you gone? Magic Hands passes your jelly roll ruler.
Can we have that one? Thank you.
Can we have that one?
Hands.
You see, it occurred to me that not everybody wants to have all the tools, but if you just had that ruler and you stitched your strips together, you could use that ruler to measure, I knew I had it somewhere, to easily, trim the end off, and then if you folded your strip in half, it would be no major problem to actually measure off the sections and do it that way.
It's really clever.
So you could start off Patchwork with just a jelly roll, the jelly roll ruler, and with the jelly roll ruler comes this, and that can be used in exactly the same way as I use the Dresden plate jacket, because you could use one shape this way and one shape the other way, and put it together. Or you can use it for bunting. I've done bunting several times before. So there's lots and lots and lots
it really is.
of possibilities with what we've got there.
I love it. Obviously, you love the classroom, and a very, very busy show as well, getting all of your products. And thank you for all of your emails to Carol Firth in Yaxley, just down the road.
Shall we give something away? Shall we give away
just have to make sure I watch
mat?
the classroom. I've not done any quilting for more than 30 years, but would like to start again. So please could you advise me which are the best basic templates that she should get, that Carol should get?
Right, the best basic template is that lot. You want to have those things there.
So this is the one you need, Carol.
You need
the ruler with the triangle and the simply square.
That's
the one
your
you need.
cutting things.
Yeah.
And then if she really wants a packet of templates that I would consider to be very, very useful, it's by the ones we've been demonstrating on the show. The Dresden plate, the 45-degree one, the templates you're getting for that amazing price of
$22.48. So, Carol, I hope that helps.
At that price again.
You won't get it at that price again.
And we will give this away.
My future daughter-in-law will be... friend had a baby boy in May. When you said you were using this fabric for the quilting class, I thought it would be nice to make the quilt you demonstrate for him today. Oh, that's nice.
I think that would be
haven't seen
really
the finished
nice.
quilt this one. I'm definitely going to do it as it
Where's
comes.
it gone?
That's
There it is.
very
There
good.
it is.
Thank you very much. There's Catherine Montgomery in Colville in Leicestershire. Oh,
And there's another
really
quick look at it for you. All right?
There
There's
you
a
go.
close-up.
Especially for Catherine Montgomery, and congratulations one and all. That's Catherine in Colville in Leicestershire. Yeah, brilliant. Do that one. We've got loads of emails, and we are going to give away something.
Yes, we are, the mat.
Lovely.
Yes.
Oh, we're going to give away the mat.
So we're going to give away
look
the
at
mat.
all of those emails. They're all in there.
I will read them all and come back to you. I'm back on the 13th of September.
Fantastic.
I'm at Festival of Quilts next week, so if you're coming to that, come and see.
Lovely.
And the mat's going to go to, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. It's going to go to Anne Owens
in
Devon.
Oh, that's lovely.
Okay.
Loads of ideas, such useful tips. The fabrics this morning are just gorgeous, and with all the inspirations just got to be purchased. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much. Well done, Jenny. That's a lovely classroom.
Thank
really
you.
Lovely.
Thank
and remember,
you all for watching.
You can see previous classrooms on our website as well. You'll see a few of those there, which is always lovely
And
to
they can watch it again
back to.
too.
This is what we love.
Yes.
We absolutely love it. We've loved having your company. Jenny's been absolutely amazing.